The pandemic made home testing common for COVID, but now it's possible to diagnose all kinds of acute and even chronic conditions without leaving your home. It's the next revolution in tech and AI-enabled healthcare designed to save lives, time, and money. Today, we meet TachMed. Welcome back to another edition of The Angel Nest, where real angel investors and entrepreneurs partner to build great companies. I'm David Hemingway. I'm a 5-time founder, now an active angel investor, and my mission here is to tell the stories that are powering innovation. We don't make or recommend investments at The Angel Nest, and this program is for informational purposes only. TachMed founder Paul Christie and his company are dedicated to changing the way we diagnose illness, leveraging digital technology in a connected world and making it possible to do from home much of what has always required a visit to a doctor or a clinic. Paul, welcome to The Angel Nest.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, David.
We're also honored to have Mark Kessler join. He's the Chief Operating Officer of TachMed.
Thanks, David.
And we also have TachMed's FDA and IP attorney. He's Jeremiah Kelly from Venable LLP, who will help us understand how TachMed will launch and stay ahead of the competition.
Great to be with you, David.
Paul, you started in the UK, and we meet here today in our New York studios, which seems appropriate because I know TachMed is a solution for the whole world. Tell us what inspired you to start the company.
Thank you, David. I was a co-founder of a private equity fund managing a lot of U.S. endowment money in Africa. And coming from a capital markets background, we were handling a lot of data from financial markets, trading often at high frequencies. When I was asked by our strategic partners in Africa, which involved the World Bank, to look at health, it was very obvious to me that health was an area that was data poor. World Health Organization was publishing annual reports with data that was 3 years old. And to me, used to making financial decisions based on data derived from microseconds ago. I couldn't understand how policies and any kind of decisions were being made with data that was 3 years old. So I just started evaluating the architecture that was out there, the decision-making processes. So we just need a whole new set of technologies from device through software through cloud computing to accelerate and improve the quality of decision-making in health.
Please tell us how TachMed works.
We have an innovative approach to creating new devices to get better data from people testing at home, testing in the field, as remote as it can be, transferring that data into the cloud and enabling a new generation of machine learning driven algorithms that improve the way that data finds its way to payers, providers, the people that patients depend on to enable them to get access to health services. And it's an integrated approach, David.
So if I'm a patient, how would I use TachMed?
You would subscribe to our service probably through your payer or your health service provider. You would get access through them to our service. And they would give you one of our devices at home. You would have your own dedicated account. You would get access to a range of tests, some of which you would do regularly as part of a normal approach to managing your health. Maybe this is a new kind of behavior where you would test regularly for certain things. Or maybe you're suffering from something and you're not sure what it is. Maybe you have a respiratory disease. Maybe you have some other disease. And you want to decide or determine exactly what that disease is so you can be treated for it remotely. So you would notify your partner, your healthcare provider. They would send you the test. You would put it into the device, do the test. It takes 30 seconds. The data is transmitted in microseconds to your provider, and they will give you the response. And that can enable a new online approach to sending you your prescription remotely to your house inside of an hour. And I think I mentioned to you, David, we have a strategic partnership now with AWS. And with the AWS marketplace and online pharmacy that they have, and the burgeoning amount of Amazon or other types of online telehealth providers, all these things can be automated. You could do the diagnostic test and have your prescription on your doorstep within the hour.
Jeremiah, many investors will say that the three scariest letters in healthcare investing are F, D, and A. You're in charge of managing that process, so please tell us where TachMed stands in terms of getting FDA approval.
Well, sure. And those are some scary words if you have a company that's not committed to the FDA's rigorous expectations as it relates to the safety and efficacy of a diagnostic capability. Thankfully, TachMed's committed to this, and they've de-risked this technology already by having a Q-sub interaction with the agency. Diagnostics are regulated typically as Class 2 medical devices, as you know, and there's a pretty straightforward pathway for diagnostic capabilities to prove substantial equivalence to a predicate device or a device already on the market that shares the same intended use and the same technological characteristics. So the 510K process is pretty straightforward. What is very unique, though, about TachMed's diagnostic capability is the software interaction and the telehealth capability that is added on to that. Now, thankfully, FDA's got some very robust guidance on this point with regard to software as a medical device. Ever since the 21st Century Cures Act in 2016, the agency has been really forced to clarify its expectations for device manufacturers, and TachMed has a plan to comply fully with the verification and validation expectations of this software function guidance. And those who are listening would understand what the quality system regulation is. It's essentially GMPs for devices. So under 21 CFR 820, all of this software component, which is really the most, one of the more novel areas of the device development, is all a function of compliance with the QSR. So what I see in Paul's approach with TachMed here from an FDA perspective is a rigorous commitment to demonstrating substantial equivalence through the 510K process on an indication-by-indication basis or perhaps on a panel basis, on a multiplex basis, but also this willingness to work within the agency's emerged framework for software as a medical device and within its guidance for telehealth to add this really unique functionality that's patient-centric. So I think they're on the way to fitting in nicely with where the agency is on these topics, and it's it's a pretty innovative device platform.
And do you have defensible IP? Investors always want to know about sustainability.
Yeah, I think that is the most these things go hand in hand. I think there's three legs to every successful device launch. You have to have a strong IP fortress. You have to have an outstanding FDA regulatory strategy and capability. Eventually, you need to work out coverage and reimbursement. FDA clearance is typically kind of the halftime of the football game here. And we were hired and brought on our team at Venable to work with TachMed last fall. And it's been exciting to work alongside their team to evaluate their IP position. I think they have a comprehensive portfolio. And our job is, of course, to make that rock solid and see opportunities for additional filings where it's possible. But I think it's a comprehensive portfolio. And the nice thing about what our team does at Venable is we don't just do patent prosecution. We probably have the best biopharma medtech litigation team in the country. And so that also allows you to apply those lessons learned from rigorous litigation kind of upfront at the prosecution stage. So we're bringing all of that expertise to bear on the TachMed portfolio. And honestly, the graphene sensor capability is unique. Other pieces of the IP are very unique, and we're excited to work with them.
Jeremiah, it sounds like you're putting potential infringers on notice.
When you see the Venable name, it should speak volumes.
Let's bring in Mark Kessler. He's TachMed's Chief Operating Officer, and you have some ambitious plans for worldwide expansion. How do you see the execution rolling out?
And so, Dave, to answer that question, I would say right now there are two things that we are currently working on. The first is, having the company started in the UK, and that's where the core of our engineering base is, and that is where the core of the vendors we are currently working with are located. That is what I would call stage one. So that's where the R&D has been occurring. That's where the initial manufacturing, assembly, logistics will start, because we're working with partner entities in England, in Scotland. We're looking at a possibility of Ireland, and just based on the fact that the firm has been around for about 4 years, and that's where the base is. That has made a lot of sense, especially with some of our engineers being Eurocentric. The next step of that is obviously bringing it to the U.S. So what we are currently evaluating right now is setting up an office somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic region. That'll be a combination of business operations and R&D. So that will be data analysis, data engineering, we think some assay development and a few other things there. With the idea being that as we grow, we understand we need to co-locate manufacturing into the U.S. And so we're looking at corridors where we have access to both contract manufacturers that we're working with in Europe, or possibly wherever that could be licensed in the U.S. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be able to, whether it's in a campus environment or within a close proximity environment, really build it out so we have the ability to take advantage of the U.S. market and then begin to expand that possibly further east into Asia, knowing that we also have the UK and possibly Irish piece working on the European side.
Paul, if you would, tell us about the data you'll be collecting. It strikes me that a fully established and functioning TachMed would have saved the world a lot of trauma and death during COVID.
I think it's spot on. And it woke the world up. It was a catalyst. A system like this wasn't designed for COVID, but it was designed to be that frontline infrastructure, digital infrastructure for a range of different things. Collecting data regularly in real time, systematically uploading it, enabling anything from health security agencies right down to local populations and individuals to monitor the incidence of disease would give everybody that transparency and insight that they crave, and we hope protect the economy as well as society. In terms of the data, it's about security and trust. We wanted to make sure that in building that architecture, that people could confidently use our testing system and know that that data is secure. Hence the strategic partnership with AWS, where they've got military-grade security, they've got ready-to-go HIPAA compliance, and we know that when we start deploying this system, whether it's civilian, military, health defense, national, international, that data is going to be held in the most secure servers, that we've got access to the most effective and cutting-edge silicon that's available for our downstream machine learning and AI-led applications as the system develops.
One of the consumer advantages that appealed to me right away is the fact that you can wipe away a lot of waiting time. People have waited days, even weeks sometimes, for test results. And in an era where sometimes your provider emails you the results before you've even had a chance to sit down with your doctor, it can be a really harrowing experience.
I think that's absolutely right. Your health journey can't start until you've been diagnosed. In the UK, we have a waiting list of 7.5 million people for the NHS. 6.5 million people of those, I'm told, have not had their first diagnosis. So every day that they have to wait to be diagnosed is a day less that they have for their healthcare professionals to outline a pathway for intervention. And that can negatively affect the outcome. So, yes, you want to fast-track diagnostics, but you also want to put it in the hands of healthcare professionals that are not overworked, where they can activate a patient pathway quickly and effectively with a minimal amount of risk of making a mistake. So if we give them the best possible data rapidly and frequently from time to time as people monitor the risk of developing more chronic conditions, they're going to be able to act and intervene sooner. Patient outcomes must always be at the heart of every health system. Building a digital health ecosystem and putting TachMed right at the start of that journey will make that happen quicker and make that more of a reality.
So potential investors will want to know what the next 12 to 24 months looks like for TachMed.
It's exciting. It's not quiet. It's about developing the organization to do a number of different things, develop a very wide range of tests. That's the big thing, having a content strategy that leverages the system, the platform, to cover as many tests as possible. So we're building other strategic partnerships to leverage lab space to develop those assays. Then it's about building the partnerships for distribution and execution of what is quite a groundbreaking business model. We're not just a software as a service company. We're not just a tech-enabled company leveraging a medical device. It's a fully integrated system. For that reason, the number of market segments that TachMed can feed into are numerous. So again, starting with the relationship with AWS, being able to look at the AWS marketplace for distribution, internally for customers, working with payer providers to join up, create that connected and integrated system for patient pathway management is really important. And we'll be working closely with Jeremiah and his firm and our CRO, CSSI, who've been immensely helpful at working with the regulators and the reimbursement agencies to ensure people can pay for the TachMed system and get diagnosed. So it's going to be busy, but we're on a mission, and we feel we can go on a mission to deliver social good, but also make money for our investors.
Faster results with less expense, improved data. Sounds like a winner. Please keep us posted on your progress, and congratulations.
Thank you, David.
Paul Christie, Jeremiah Kelly, and Mark Kessler, thanks for joining us today on The Angel Nest. You can find contact information for our guest today at our website, theangelnest.com, where you can also reach me if you know of an interesting company or an exciting opportunity or an angel investor that we should talk to. My email is david@theangelnest.com. I'm David Hemingway. We produce The Angel Nest with help from David Newhoff at the Art Deco Film Center building just west of Times Square in New York. Thanks for listening.